So hello everyone. I hope everyone's doing well. We're happy to see so many people attend the information session. So my name is Brooke, Julia, and Emily, who are the two other mentors, will give you guys some information regarding this year's Ottawa Science Innovation Challenge. So this year will be a little bit different because of the coronavirus situation. We'll be hosting our event virtually, and we'll update you if there are any changes to our plan. So just a little bit of general information regarding the Ottawa Science Innovation Challenge. So there are two components. The first round involves students writing a written proposal. So I hope by now everyone has had a chance to read up on the case that we sent in early November on aging and health span. So you'll be asked to write a written proposal, and the submission deadline for the proposal is going to be on the 10th of December, and this is a rigid deadline. We won't be accepting proposals after this date. And we'll go in future slides explaining details with regards to the proposal. Your proposal will be judged by researchers and graduate students at the university. And based on the written proposal, a select few will be chosen and invited to compete in the final round. And the exact date will be shared with the finalists closer to the date. So the final round, we used to do things in person, but now, like I said, it's going to be virtual. The students will be asked to design an e-poster and present to judges for about 10 minutes. And the top 3 presentations will be awarded a scholarship if they choose to attend the University of Ottawa's program in the University of Ottawa's Faculty of Science. And like usual, we hope to bring guest speakers to speak virtually at our event. So who will judge my proposal? So like I said, professors and grad students will be judging the submissions. So the submissions will be graded by 3 or 4 judges, and the scores will be standardized to make sure everything is as fair as possible. So the judging criteria in the rubric was given out in the student guide. So please have a look at the student guide if you have any questions with regards to that. And we'll be providing you with written feedback, I hope, because it's something that we do every year, and provide you with information of what you did well and some things that you can improve on. So this is the timeline for this year. Again, some dates are subject to change. We've already sent out the case reveal, and like I said, I hope you guys have all had a chance to read through it. Like I said, December 10 is the deadline for the written submission, so make sure to keep this in mind. The round 1 results will be announced sometime in mid-January, but like I said, this is a tentative date. We'll inform you as we approach the date, and the virtual final round will be sometime in February. So the case. So like I said, the case for this year has to do with aging and health span. And there were 2 different cases shared. One of them was on the condition of the eye, but you're not obligated to really, write a proposal on either one of them. You just have to think of a problem that relates to aging and health span, do some research, and write a written proposal about that. So you can explore a variety of different things. This was just a nice diagram that I found in a journal that just, the different biological aspects of aging. So there's a lot of different things you can look at. There were some examples provided in here, a couple. Students can choose to look at a variety of problems as it pertains to aging. Osteoarthritis is an example. Its incidence is quite high in the elderly, and it's something that, has a severe impact on joint mobility and function. So with regards to osteoarthritis, there are a variety of different things you can choose to look at. You can look at genetic factors. You can look at different things that may increase the risk for someone to develop osteoarthritis. You can look at different ways that we can screen for this so we can intervene earlier. Variety of things. This is a non-exhaustive list. Another example here that we have is on different disorders like depression, anxiety, Alzheimer's, dementia. These are all conditions that they affect youth, but they tend to affect elderly much more. So, like I said, there are various areas that you could explore here as well, like molecular pathways that have been researched. There's tons and tons of research. Billions of dollars go into this type of research. So there's a lot of work that's already been done in this field. So if you choose to look into this, you can research at what some groups have done and potential things that you can study. So again, these are two examples. So what can I write a proposal on? We just discussed this, but like I said, you can approach the case from any perspective, so long as it's relevant to aging. So make sure it has to do with aging and health span, but you're free to approach it in whatever angle you'd like to. We encourage you to do research on your field, in the field that you choose. And you're not required to focus on any particular issues mentioned in the case. And also must be lab-based. So this is very key. You're more than welcome to research, look into clinical or observational research studies, but your proposal must be lab-based. So it must be a legitimate experiment. It can't be just, a study looking at, how effective a particular drug is when administered to a certain number of patients. It has to be lab-based. It has to have the, not that a clinical study doesn't, but it has to have key independent, dependent control variables, and we'll go over this. So how to read publications. So it can be, challenging to read publications, especially at a young age. But first of all, these are some websites that are very good to look into. The UAuto Library website has a nice database that you can search papers on. Now, I know that, because you guys aren't University of Ottawa students yet, you guys might not be able to unlock these papers. So the OSIC team has been kind enough to offer teams the opportunity to get up to 10 papers unlocked, and we'll go over how you can go about doing so. Some suggested databases that you should look at is PubMed. It's very popular and very common. Web of Science is another one. Obviously, you can look at various search engines like Google Scholar to find papers. We suggest you save all your articles as you find them. So it's not very effective or efficient to find all the information that you need to find and then find all the articles at the end. Try to do them as you're doing your proposal, as you're doing your research. It's much more effective. And Julia will go over how to reference and cite your work using Mendeley later on in this presentation. Your school's another great resource. I know when I was in high school, they provided us with various databases where we could find papers and research articles. So that might be something that you should look into. How to submit an article, unlocking request. So like I said, we are giving you guys the opportunity to send us an email with the article that you're interested in if you're not able to unlock it, and we will unlock it for you. Just please make sure to include the team code in your email, as well as the PubMed link of the paper. Now, I know PubMed doesn't have all papers, it's just a database. So if you can't find your paper on PubMed, feel free to send another link, but it's just preferable you send it the PubMed link. And please allow up to 3 business days for us to unlock your paper. And like I said, we will not unlock more than 10 papers per team. If you've ran up to 10 papers, or if you just want to find papers that doesn't require any subscription or any charge, you can always look into open access journals. A lot of journals today are going down this avenue to promote science within the community. So you can, quickly search up online, free open access journal in whatever field you're looking at. And, you can find these journals and they provide articles free of charge. So this is another option. So now we'll move on with how to come up with a research idea. So this is, I would say, a critical part of today's presentation. When you're writing a written proposal, how do I start out with some idea to research? So the first thing is you want to highlight your problem. You want to figure out, what do I want to look into? I gave some examples earlier: osteoarthritis, and we also talked about the neurodegenerative diseases like dementia, Parkinson's. So figure out your problem, what you want to look into. Once you've narrowed down your problem, you want to research the different factors associated with this problem. And what I mean by this is, for example, if you're looking at osteoarthritis, maybe you want to do a lot of research looking into what factors contribute, what genetic, what environmental factors contribute to this disease. You want to do as much research as you can in the field as it relates to your problem. Once you've done this, you want to link your ideas and propose a potential solution. This is the key part. This is the innovation part of OSIC. You want to come out with an idea that can potentially resolve the problem and an experiment to complement that. So what we suggest is, you start broad and gradually narrow down your topic. So the media is a great start, or top journals like Nature, New England Journal of Medicine. Find what's hot in the media, what people are trying to solve related to aging. That will, start to warm you up and start to get you to think about what things you can look at, what problems might be a good idea to try researching. And, we encourage you to choose something that interests you and to dive deeper and look at previous work that's been done in the field and what you can do to, to spin it, to look at something different that previous researchers have not looked at. It's very important that you look at something unique, novel, and try to come up with something original. So the challenge. So as it was shared to you in the student guide, you're required to have these aspects, and that is the abstract, the background, the research idea, aim, hypothesis, rationale, significance of research idea, which all can sort of be placed under the same umbrella, research approach, methods, which is very, very key, definition sheet, and references. For references, we would like you to reference an APA style. And Julia will go over how to do this later on in the presentation. So the abstract. So before I explain, the abstract is really a short and sweet picture of what the research is all about. So when you're going in and looking into past or previous work that's been done in your field, the way you want to scan papers is you don't want to read the whole paper. Reading the whole paper is A, time consuming, and B, if you're not familiar with the topic, it might be a bit challenging to read, some of the terminology. So we encourage you to really look at the abstract. Usually, depending on the journal, each abstract will have, a little bit of background info, a couple lines, then it should have, what it was trying to do, the methods, and then it should have the results and the conclusion. So based on that, you should be able to get a picture of what they did, what they were able to find, and, how research should move forward based on the finding. So, based on the abstract, then you can really look into the paper and find, anything that you need to find, really. So you're going to be asked to do something very similar to that. Your abstract should be something short and sweet, like I said, and be a summary of your topic and research idea. It should really be clear and explain, what's my problem that I'm trying to find, what's my very brief background information, and then how are you trying to solve it. So it shouldn't exceed, I believe the maximum for the abstract is 250 words. It shouldn't be very long. And then the background information. This is gonna, be a little bit larger in terms of size. And the background information really is information that you've researched in the field. So this is all about the previous work that's been done. So you want to make clear the problem that you've chosen, and you want to characterize your problem. What aspect of your problem are you trying to solve? So in the case of osteoarthritis, are you trying to attack it through, a genetic aspect? Are you trying to look at, some technology that can be used? There's endless different ways you can approach it. So you want to characterize that. After you've done this, you want to discuss research that's been done in the field. And, this part's where you go on PubMed and search up different articles and try to find ideas that you can potentially look into for a solution. Thereafter, you want to connect your ideas. And finally, you want to sort of hint at the final idea, your solution. And this really should be in your research idea, but you want to kind of spiral down and finally approach this. So that's a little bit about the background information. So again, this is directly from the student guide rubric. You want to make sure it's clear. You want to make sure you discuss very thoroughly the ideas, research that's been done, and you want to support, why you've chosen a particular solution. Research idea. So again, this is also very important. You want to make sure your research idea is very concise, to the point, and very narrow. You want to make sure it's simple. Very, very few research, even research that's on the media, is actually truly groundbreaking in nature. 99.9% of research that's done, really does not have a huge impact on a field unless it's very early. It has sort of a small impact, and it's the accumulation of a lot of research projects that brings a field forward. So we don't expect you, to have some groundbreaking or shattering idea, but we want you to have a very narrow, concise, and specific research idea. And if you're able to have this one specific idea, your methods and your following aspects of your proposal will be much better. We don't want you to have a research idea that's 5 different ideas in one. That's not the point here. You want to be as specific and as concise and narrow as possible. So in your research idea, you will have your hypothesis, your rationale, and you'll have a significance, as we'll discuss. So I'm sure you guys are in high school, so you guys are probably aware about what a hypothesis is, experiments, predictions. So the hypothesis, like you probably have learned, is your educated guess based on research in the field. So once you've done research, developed an understanding of the problem that you're trying to look at. For example, in the first case where the light bulb is burnt out, once you have developed an understanding of how electricity works, you can come and hypothesize that perhaps the light bulb is burnt out, which is preventing it from being lit. From there, you can develop an experiment. And this experiment's purpose is, once you've done this experiment, if the light turns on, then your hypothesis is correct. So the experiment is replacing the bulb with a new bulb. And once, if the light bulb becomes lit, then you have proven your hypothesis. If not, you develop another hypothesis, and that's how research is basically done. It's many hypotheses and predictions until finally you've come to a result that you are satisfied with. So we discussed this. Hypothesis is a causal explanation for a pattern observation. It must be testable, like we discussed, falsifiable, and addressed by an experiment. Your rationale really is why you've chosen that particular hypothesis, and this stems from the research that you've done. Has a particular research group looked at one molecular pathway, for example, and found something? And have you been able to look at other research projects and perhaps been able to connect some dots in order to look at something else that's novel and something that others have not done in the past? So that's your rationale. You want to explain what other people have done and the reasons for your experiment or your hypothesis. So your rationale should be placed following your hypothesis. Significance of research idea. So this is really where you explain the potential impact that your research is going to have. Again, be realistic. Like I said, not all studies are groundbreaking. Some studies might not even have a huge impact on the community or society directly, but they might have more so an indirect impact. It could inspire researchers to investigate something else that may lead to something else, which may then in turn lead to the final therapy that you're looking for. So be realistic, and really think about, what science is all about. Why do we do science at the end of the day? To sort of inspire you here. Now I'll pass it on to Julia, and Julia will lead the next few slides.
Thank you, Brooke. Okay, so the methodology, which is really important in your research proposal, it's the framework of your research approach. So it's a list of steps in a logical manner, and it's where you're going to be testing your hypothesis with various scientific techniques. So the design of your experiment is 25% of your grade. So it needs to be clear, well presented, and also the variables and sample size that you choose is worth 10% of your score. So it's important that you choose a realistic size. So your methodology is not your typical materials and methods list. So your experimental details are not needed. For example, measurements like volume or mass, you don't need to include that. However, variables should be stated. For example, your independent or dependent variables or your control group. It's also really important that you have reasonable and realistic sample sizes. It's also important that you respect lab safety. And finally, you really need to include whether it's in vitro or in vivo. So in vitro is you're testing your experiment on cells in a petri dish. And in vivo is in animals, so in a living organism. However, this is not a clinical trial, so you're not going to be testing it in humans. So this is an example of a methodology. So you can see here how they have their steps listed out in an ordered fashion. They explain each step, and they also provide a diagram which really helps with the visualization of each step.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, Julia. Just need to make it clear here. This is actually in a poster format, so we don't expect you guys to do this for the written proposal. You can just write all this in a written document. You don't need to design it like this.
Sounds good, thank you.
No problem.
So next is your definitions sheet. This is a short document that explains any advanced scientific terminology, and it really helps the reader understand your proposal and what you're talking about. It's really short, it should not exceed 10 definitions. So there's an example on the slide. For the writing style, it's really important that you're concise when writing and you avoid any unnecessary jargon. It's also important to keep in mind that the judges aren't necessarily experts on your exact topic. So you really need to explain any terms or acronyms or processes. Just don't assume that they know. Also, it's very key that you proofread. You want to leave a good impression on the judges. So making sure that everything is written properly and ordered correctly is really, really important. And this is 10% of your score. So it's really important. Throughout your research, of course, you're going to have a lot of sources, and it's really crucial that you reference them. So a really useful tool is Mendeley, which generates references for you. So how to make an account, you simply sign up with the link that you see on this slide and create a login and name password. So you download it. So for Mac, Windows, Linux, you can use the following link that you see on the slide. And after downloading, it's really useful that you also add the Mendeley importer, which is a Chrome extension, so that throughout your research, you can just quickly download your sources into the Mendeley library. So once you launch the application, so Mendeley, you of course need to enter your username and password that you use to create the account. And in My Library, you have to select all documents. Yeah. And there you can left click and click Add Files. Once you add files, you can see everything that you added through your Chrome extension. So you select all the sites that you want to reference, and then you click Open. And they should all pop up into your library and under all documents. And through there, you can select whatever sources you want to import and then bring them into your text.
Oh, sorry.
Also, sorry, I was gonna, yeah, before doing that, it's important that you select your style. Yeah, so citation style. So under View menu, you can click citation style, and it's American Psychological Association, so APA, and the 6th edition. And then, like I said, you select any relevant references and you can copy them into your document. So it's really handy. So how to submit. So submissions are due at 11:59, December 10th, 2020. You can submit your submissions to osic.uottawa@gmail.com, so the email you see. And it is one email per team, so one submission per team. About within 1 business day, you will receive a confirmation of your submission. And it's really important that you include your team code in this email because this is how we're going to identify the different teams. In your email, you should have 2 files, both in PDF format. Both copies should include a title page. And so copy 1 contains title page with your school name, your team number, as well as your team member names and your project title. So for example, your name would be team number _ your project title. So an example, E24 _ ROS glycomitosis. And your second copy should have no identifying information, so no names, no school. It should only contain your team number. So an example is E24.pdf. If you have any questions, you can ask them now, or you can email us at osic@uri-irpc or osic.uottawa@gmail.com. Also, there's social media accounts like Facebook that you can also ask questions to.
Super, thank you, Julia. So now Emily will take over for the frequently asked questions. Please hold your questions until the end.
Okay, so the first question that we're going to cover is, if I submit December 11th, will my submission be accepted? The answer is no. The deadline is rigid. Any submissions past December the 10th at 11:59 p.m. will not be accepted. The next question is, I am not sure how to approach this case. How should I start? So Brooke mentioned a bit earlier, but the best place to start would be to research articles and reviews from credible sources. Some places you can try is PubMed, Google Scholar, or any other credible databases or search engines. Okay, the next question is, how do I know whether my research idea is good? There is no right or wrong idea. However, try your best to ensure that you have a focused research question. You should have a clear, independent and dependent variable for your investigation, as well as both positive and negative controls. The next question, what constitutes a good methodology? So a good methodology should have specific information on how you will be conducting the study, what data you'll be collecting, and how you'll be controlling variables that may affect the credibility of your findings. Okay, the next question, what do I do if there are no precedents for our experiment? If no one has done it before, what do we put in the background info section? So our answer to this is, what makes you think that your experiment is going to work? If your research led you to the conclusion that your idea might work, then you have something to put in your background info section. It doesn't have to be an experiment or a research project that was exactly the same as yours, but you have to talk about what has been done in the past and what information is currently available that makes you believe that your experiment will work. How many sources do we need? So there is no fixed number or specific number to aim for. Ideally, try to aim for sources that are credible and peer-reviewed. When you start off, you can look at websites for general information, but then look at academic journals when you have a more specific topic. The next question, how do I go about reading this very long research paper? So there's different sections to a paper. The abstract will give you a general idea of their experimental goals, and you can see if these goals align with what you're researching. The background information section will provide more information about the field of your topic to further reinforce your understanding. You can take note of the procedures used, such as the software, ways of analyzing data, and materials. Keep in mind that you are creating an innovative proposal and you shouldn't be copy and pasting experiments. So what's the difference between an abstract and the research idea or rationale? So the abstract provides an overview of your proposal, which includes your research idea, the general procedure, and the significance of the proposal. It should be concise, so 250 words maximum. Whereas in the idea or rationale, you can go more in depth about your research idea. Okay, the next question, do I need to include specific amounts or dosages of X materials in the protocol? And no, you do not. You just need to mention the materials required for the experiment. Okay, so those are our frequently asked questions. Before we open the floor, we just wanted to mention that we have something new this year. For teams who want a little bit of help, you can book a meeting with a mentor. So to do so, just email us at the, I think it's osicuottawa@gmail.com. And you can book a meeting, 20 minutes max per team. We will not be scheduling meetings past December 4th because it will be too close to the submission date. So now we will open the floor to questions. You can either write your questions in the chat or you can raise your hand and turn on your microphone. So any questions at all? And if you have any questions in French, feel free to ask. So a question, I noticed that this is being recorded. Will we be receiving the recording? We are recording the meeting and I think we will post it up onto YouTube and we'll send the link to everyone present and people who weren't able to come as well.
Awesome.
The next question, why do we submit 2 copies of the proposal? It's mainly to make sure that we have your proposal so that we don't lose a copy. I think.
Yeah, so I'm just going to add on to that. It's a good answer, but the reason why we want to do that is we want to make sure it's as anonymous as possible, just to prevent the any conflict of interest when a judge is looking at your written proposal. So that's the main reason. We store one, we use the other one that doesn't have your name on the file, and we submit that one to the judges.
Okay, the next question is, so we aren't necessarily conducting our lab, we're just showcasing our ideas and then coming up with a hypothesis and a conclusion. That is correct. So you will not be conducting your lab. It's just a research proposal. The next question, what exactly do you mean by dependent and independent variables? Could you give examples? So the dependent variables is what you're going to be measuring, whereas your independent variables is what you're going to be changing. So for example, say you were measuring the effects of a drug on specific symptoms. The drug will be your independent variable and the amount of drug that you give will be your independent variable, whereas your dependent variable will be how this these different quantities of the drug will affect the symptoms. Okay, I'm just gonna slide up. So the next question, is it possible to obtain a copy of the slideshow for our team members? I believe we will be sending out the presentation, but Brooke can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, you're absolutely correct. So we're not going to be sending the slides, but we'll be posting this on YouTube as soon as possible. So if any of your team members did not have a chance to attend the information session, they're more than welcome to see it on YouTube, and we'll send the link and everything in another email shortly.
Okay, the next question, since 1 business day is needed to process the submissions, does that mean that we need to submit our submissions at least 24 hours before December 10th? No, you do not. So the deadline is December 10th at 11:59, and within a day's time after that, you will receive a confirmation email. But if you want to be safe and make sure that it's been sent through, then you can for sure send it in a day earlier.
Awesome. If we're selected for the second round, will we present the findings of the experiment we proposed in the first round? Yes, you'll be asked to present the same proposal, but this is just sort of the finalists presenting, and you'll be competing for the prize that we talked about earlier on in the presentation.
Okay, we have another question. What should we do if our research is giving us information on the effects of our idea on humans? Would we be able to use the same information but test it on animals? Yes, you could. Usually, if your information is giving you what the effects are on humans, usually there would have been trials beforehand on animals, or either in vivo or in vitro. So you can also look into that to see if that would give you more information.
Hannah, I'm not sure if, or Emily, sorry, I'm not sure if this was the question you answered. Was it the one about do we come up with our own possible solution to an already existing problem? Is that new?
No, sorry. It was a question sent privately, but I can
Okay.
just repeat it.
No problem.
quickly.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so it was just asking if your research is giving you information on the effects of your idea on humans, would they be able to use the same information but test it on animals?
Okay, awesome. So the next question is, do we come up with our own possible solution to an already existing problem? Example, solution to Alzheimer's. And if the solution already exists, are we just restating someone else's research proposal? So what we're asking you to do is we're asking you to look at a problem. Obviously, the problem has to exist for it to be considered a problem. And once you've come up with a problem to research, we're asking you guys to research previous work that's been done. And once you've researched this previous work, we're asking you guys to come up with an original and novel idea to combat the problem based on the research. So it should not be restating someone else's research proposal. You need the previous work because that's how research is done. You need the previous work to come up with your own idea, but it should be new and original.
Okay. Somebody else asked, do the team numbers just represent an individual, or are we supposed to find others with the same number? So if you applied as a team, your team has a number, but if you applied individually, then you will have an individual number for yourself.
If there are experiments out there that haven't completely worked on or people are still working on, are we able to do our research based on this existing experiment and make it better? Or does it have to be something completely new? So the preference is that the proposal's original and new and something that you've come up with by sort of linking up the different work that you've done. But you know, if it's something that hasn't really been researched extensively or something that's in its early phases, it's okay if you use that, but make sure that you're not copy pasting previous proposal that's been done. It should be yours, it should be unique, but you can definitely take some ideas.
Okay, how strict is the word limit? Can we go over 10 to 15%? I think the word limit is pretty strict, Brooke, could you correct me if I'm wrong?
Yes, you're right. So the word limit's fairly strict. We would appreciate if all participants could follow the rules that were set out in the student guide. Please don't go over the word limit. It can affect your written proposal scoring. And then one of the questions was, I applied as a team and my teammates don't want to do this anymore. Can I submit as an individual? Yes, by all means, you can submit as an individual, but if this is the case, please send us an email to the OSIC email indicating this, just so we know that you are submitting as an individual. So please do this as soon as you can.
And that's very similar to another question asking if my team member is unable to continue with me, do I have to contact anyone to notify them of this change? So yes, please send an email to notify us, but you can continue as an individual. Next we have, what would the meeting with a mentor consist of? So if you already have pre-existing questions, you can come prepared with those questions and we can just help you out to straighten out your idea. Or if you don't know where to start and you've been researching, but you can't seem to understand exactly what entry points, then you can talk to us and we can help you put you on a better path to write your research proposal.
Awesome.
Did we miss any questions?
If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. You can unmute yourself or you can, add it into the chat. Please don't be shy. Awesome. So we'll be here for another 10 minutes, I would say. So if you guys have any questions, you're welcome to add it. But if you don't have any questions, we'd like to wish you the best of luck for the Innovation Challenge. I know things will be a little bit different this year with things running virtually, but we wish you the best of luck. Stay safe, and we hope to get in touch with you guys. And let us know if you guys have any questions by emailing us to the OSIC email.
Okay, so we'll just continue answering questions as they come in. So somebody asked, to clarify, the proposal is stating a way to solve a problem and the experiment to prove if the innovation works. The experiment, I'm not sure if I understand your question. So the proposal will include the experimental methodology, sorry. You won't actually be doing the experiment. So yes, your proposal would be a way to solve a problem.
Yeah, exactly. So perfect. That's
Okay.
a good answer. Yeah. So you won't actually, like we said, we'll be doing the experiment. You just need to come up with a hypothetical experiment in order to prove whether your hypothesis, to prove it and validate it, basically. So that's the whole purpose of this written proposal. The following question asked, our own research for the proposal isn't related to the case study sent. That was just an example and a theme, right? And the answer to that is yes. So we gave you that case just to inspire you guys with some ideas. You don't necessarily have to follow or write a written proposal based on the conditions that were discussed in the case. Feel free to come up with your own problem and write a proposal based on that.
Okay, so the next question, what are the main things you will be looking for in the winning proposal? So here you can reference the rubric that is in the student guide that we've sent out. Just to go over, we'll be looking at your research and your knowledge of the subject, and we'll be looking at your hypothesis, the experimental design, creativity and novelty of the idea, and the organization of your information.
So the next question is, what is a controlling factor to the experiment portions? Okay, so sorry about that. We might not have explained that in detail. So generally in experiments that you'll do in a lab scenario, you would generally have a positive control and something called a negative control. So what a negative control is, it's basically a control that does not give a response. So for example, that's not known to give a response. So for example, if you are injecting a mouse to treat a heart attack, if that's your problem, if a particular treatment has been known to not have any effect or response, that would be considered a negative control. So this is something you would add into your research experiment. And then on the other hand, a positive control is basically something that gives a positive result, that's been known to give a positive result. And the whole purpose of these controls is so you have these two controls, your positive and negative, and then you have your own experiment. And based on the results of these two controls and your own results based on your particular innovation, you can determine whether what you've come up with is something good, something not so good, and yeah, that's the whole purpose of the controlling factor. So hopefully that makes sense and that gives you a little bit of an idea.
Okay, so the next question is, just to clarify, we have no other option but to say our experiment is in vitro. This is false. So it can be in vivo, so it can be in animals, but it cannot be in humans, so it cannot be a clinical trial. So you can, for example, have your experiment be on rats or fish, for example.
Awesome. So next question, how many people go on to the next round? It's a great question. Let me go back to that. Okay, so how many people go on? So in terms of the number of people, this fluctuates year to year. It depends, but on a yearly basis, we usually select 20% of the teams to be selected to present in the final round. Will we get our? Go ahead. Sorry, you can answer that one if you like.
No, you can go ahead because I don't know the answer.
Yeah. Will we get our percentage score even if we don't win? So the scores and everything, as far as I'm aware, as my understanding goes, is not shared with participants. The rubric is shared, but your ranking with other participants is not shared. So we'll give you guys, if you've reached the finalist, that is, as a document detailing, what you've done well, what you haven't done so well. But again, this is subject to change. Things are going virtual this year. We'll give you guys more information as we approach the date.
Okay, how much help can we have from teachers, mentors, etc.? So we highly suggest that you talk to as many people to get ideas. However, you have to be writing the proposal. It can't be somebody else's work. Because that would be plagiarism, but you can ask them questions on what they know is going on within the research field. And in terms of asking us questions, you can ask us anything you want, and if ever we can't give you that information, we'll just let you know.
So awesome. So how many meetings are we allowed to book? Would we be able to book more than one meeting with a mentor or just one? So it's not actually 10 meetings per team. We only allow up to one meeting per team, and each meeting is a maximum of 20 minutes. So please keep this in mind. That 10 was for the number of papers that we will unlock for you. So yeah.
Okay.
So
are there any other?
So I have one question, sorry, that was sent to me privately. So do we have to find the solution to the problem, or can we study the presence and lack of a factor on a problem related to aging? Can we study the presence and lack of a factor? Yeah, so it doesn't have to be a solution. Like it can be an indirect solution. So more often than not, for any study, it's not a direct solution. It's, more frequently indirect. So you don't have to necessarily solve the solution. It can be studying the presence or lack of a factor on a problem and, running an experiment to find a way to solve that. So it doesn't have to be a big solution, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, someone's asked, who are we talking to if we send questions by email? So somebody on the OSIC team will be answering you depending on the nature of the email. If you have specific questions in terms of mentoring or you need help with your proposal, most likely it'll be somebody from the student advisor team.
So next question privately, sent to me privately. So are we not testing this in a lab then? Yes, so you will not be testing this in a lab. This is hypothetical, like we said, and we're grading, the judging rubric is in the student guide, but we're grading it solely not based on your results, because you unfortunately will not have results, but based on your idea, your methods, and how well you're able to coherently really share your ideas for your innovation.
Okay, what do you mean by an indirect solution? So some solutions have very direct impacts on the medical field. Those are those are kind of the solutions that you learn about in school, where somebody has discovered something huge. But there's some solutions, and most of the time in scientific research, this tends to be the outcome of research. The solutions are indirect, so they have an indirect impact on moving the scientific field forwards.
Exactly, yeah. So what I mean is that, you know, if your problem that you're trying to solve is, of course, this might not relate to the case necessarily, but if you're trying to solve, how can we promote regeneration in cardiac tissue following a heart attack, your experiment doesn't necessarily have to be, yes, it's ideal that you have, by your results show, cells, proliferating and regenerating, but you don't necessarily, that doesn't have to be the solution that you're after. Your research might be, looking at a particular molecule, that's amongst, maybe 5 or 6 key molecules or enzymes that play a factor in regeneration. So you might be only wanting to target one of those 5. So that's what I mean by indirect. It doesn't have to be, looking at the final solution. It can be something more intermediate in nature.
I received a question privately. So the question is, does our solution have to be biological, so in vitro or in vivo, or can we have a more psychological approach? I think for that, correct me if I'm wrong, Brooke or Emily, I think psychological could work, but I think it has to be something that you can test or conduct an experiment on. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Emily, did you hear the question? I didn't hear the question. Sorry about that.
Oh, I can repeat it.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So the question is, does our solution have to be biological, in vitro or in vivo, or can we have a more psychological approach?
You can take a psychological approach, but your experiment does have to be in vitro in that case. So you would have to look at the psychological effect, say, on rats. It could not be on humans.
Exactly. It can't be observational in nature. It can't be, you're looking at 10 people with a certain disorder and trying to, determine if a certain drug, allows for, a reduction in one factor or one variable. It has to be in vitro or in vivo, sorry. So I'm not sure if I answered one person's question that was sent privately. So we're not testing this in a lab then? Yes, so you're not going to be testing this in a lab. Again, it's hypothetical. When writing the lab steps, do we have to inject or can we feed the animal? That all depends, some things are done intravenously, some things are done orally. It can be either or. It depends really on your problem that you're trying to solve. Not everything, requires a drug too, right? So it all depends on the problem that you're trying to solve. It's really variable. Sorry, I can't answer that question because it all depends on your work. Any other questions? Oh, so I have one. Emily, Julia, do you guys have any questions, or can I answer one that was sent to me privately?
I don't.
Go ahead.
Okay. Could you repeat what you meant by the experiment can't be observational? So an observational study, what it is you're looking at, so it's often done in psychology, you're looking at a cohort of people, and you're looking at, you're monitoring them. You're changing a certain variable and you're monitoring them over a period of time. So what we're saying is it can't be that you have to have solution and innovation is what we're trying to say. That's the whole purpose of this. You need to have, key X and Y variables, control variables. It has to be more in depth than an observational study. Observational studies are great, but that's not what we're looking for in this particular innovation challenge.
Okay, how are we going to talk about our results if the lab is hypothetical? Because it's a hypothetical lab, you won't have results, so you don't have to talk about them. However, in your conclusion, you have to talk about how, if your results are one way or another, how would that influence the scientific research field?
Great. Any other questions? You're more than welcome to ask if you have any questions. This is probably the best time to ask questions. You'll get your answer right away instead of emailing us. So we'll end the meeting, I guess, in 5 minutes if there aren't any outstanding questions. So we'll wait another 5 minutes. We'll see. So I don't have a definition list in my student guide is one of the questions. So yes, the definition list, it's based on your written proposal. So in your written proposal, you'll have, you might have terms that you want to define, and the best place to put that is in the definitions list. It doesn't have to be, 10 pages long. It's supposed to be, try to keep it up to a maximum of around 20 words. It's just used, the judges and or grad students and professors, they might not be experts in the topic that you're researching. So the whole idea is to help them in case they're not familiar with certain terms.
Can we list more than one solution? You can, but just be careful because the more focused your paper is, the better. So don't try to offer too many solutions where you can't go in depth into one particular one.
So someone asked if they can ask a question out loud, and yes, you can.
Yeah, I was the one who asked the question about a psychological approach for a project. And I was wondering, like, because you said it can't be observational, so how do we not make it observational? Like, for example, if you want to see the effect of like music on people who have dementia, like how would we go about that for it not to be observational?
Sorry, musical effect on, sorry, I didn't catch the last part of your question.
Yeah, like for example, if you wanted to see the effect of music on people who have dementia.
So I guess it's a tricky in that sense, but you can. I think I will have to check with, you know, the heads of OSIC if that's okay. We can get back to you, but the way I envision it is, you should have at least, some in vitro or an in vivo experiment of some sort. It can't just solely be looking at the effect of something in participants, because at the end of the day, your results will be you will get results, but your results will be based on uh, it might be subjective in nature because will be based on uh, your participants, and there's nothing wrong with that. Some studies are like that, but I guess for this particular innovation challenge, we're looking more for students to design an experiment. The idea is to design an experiment with control variables. Yes, you can design controls with your study that you just mentioned, but it's preferable that you have more so a laboratory component or an in vivo component instead of just making it human based. I don't know if that answers your question. Again, we can get back to you. We can get back to you, or if you wouldn't mind, send us that exact question via email and we can respond.
Okay, perfect. That makes sense.
No problem. So I have a question sent privately. What should go into the conclusion if we don't do an experiment? Do we talk about the conclusion? Do we talk about the conclusion we would draw if the experiment had one result, and then state the conclusion if the experiment had other results? So the idea of the conclusion, yes. So again, you're not going to have results for this because you're not actually conducting the research in a laboratory setting. Your conclusion is basically summing up your innovation and your idea. It should basically be tying up everything that you've discussed. You shouldn't be discussing about any particular results. You can talk about, future avenues for your research, different things that can be looked at in the future. But no, we don't expect you to look into or discuss any results. But yes, something that I would encourage you guys to do is, you guys can look into and say, if we get this result, perhaps we would look at this. If not, sort of like an if else, and that would allow us to see, your understanding of, how you would move this and carry this research forward if things didn't work, right? Because not all research works, but not all research, no research is bad research, right? Because research, the purpose of research, whether it gives you good or bad results, is to really provide you with an opportunity to do further research in the field. So even if you don't get the result that you want, it will still allow you to understand that maybe that particular therapy doesn't work, and it might point you to a different direction. So you can explore that in your conclusion. Awesome. So I guess if there are no other questions, I guess Emily, Julia, do you guys have any questions for that were sent privately?
I don't have any.
Awesome. I think we have down to 18 participants now. So if there are any last minute questions, we'll wait for another minute and then we'll end the presentation. Again, thank you so much for attending today's information session. It was a pleasure to have all of you, and best of luck on your written proposal.